It's thundering, but here we are today, another video. And I'm going to talk about being 43 years old and living at home with my parents. And I'm going to talk about things that I did not mention in my first video. Okay? So I'm going to go back to when I was a child. Okay, when I was a child, I had a very difficult, fearful upbringing. Okay? I was raised in a household of fear. And fear, scarcity, never having enough. My mom experiencing the loss of her mom. And there were a lot of things that happened throughout my life growing up. I had a great grandmother my great grandmother was someone that the entire family would always go seek when they needed advice or they needed to know something, because my great grandmother, she had this way of doing things that everybody would go to her. Like, she was the one that you would go to. And I remember being very young. I was 5 years old, okay? And I was in school I was in my classroom sitting down. And I started coughing, like really coughing. And the coughing was so bad that I couldn't get up and I couldn't walk. And they called my mom right away. And I saw that I could not walk. My mom was trying to walk me and I couldn't walk. So I made it home and then I got rushed to the hospital. At the hospital, they told my parents that I had a severe asthma attack and they had to give me an adrenaline shot. And that was a whole entire experience. That it was traumatizing, because I remember not being able to breathe and coughing, and it was this cough that was non-stop coughing and I couldn't get my air, and I was like that for a while before I even got to the hospital. And I was diagnosed with asthma at the age of 5, and I had to start seeing an allergist and all these things. And during that same time frame, okay, my sister is 2.5 years younger than me. And my sister was born with a tooth. And for some reason, my mom went to check in with my great grandmother about, my sister being born with two teeth, and, what does that mean? And my great grandmother ends up telling my mom that, my sister was a stronger soul, and that, my sister can take my life away. I found this out, okay, I would say 3 years ago. But as a 5-year-old, seeing all these weird movements, and like my great grandmother did this whole thing to like tie me to earth so that I wouldn't go away, because she was like, if you get in an accident with your sister's gonna take, she's gonna take her life. When I tell you that I was raised, okay, in a state of fear, they didn't tell me what was going on. I just knew that it was something to do with my life, because I just had this knowing that it had to do with my life. So my whole life, I was wearing this bracelet that was protecting me from leaving Earth, because my sister was stronger and she was going to take my life if something would ever happen. So imagine growing up believing this, okay? And thinking that this bracelet can never break. And every time that bracelet would break, somehow, I would go into a frenzy panic, being a child, and my mom would panic, and it would be a whole thing. So you can imagine how many times that bracelet has broken throughout my life, that I was always so scared, because I was like, oh, my life is so fragile, because, my great grandmother said this, and now, and mind you, I didn't know that was a story, but I knew that it was about my life. I knew that it had to do with my life. So I was always scared. And on top of that, living in Jersey with this whole thing going on about you got to get tied down and the bracelet, and then living with the fear of, because something can happen to me and I know that it's related to my life. we lived in a 2-story house in Jersey, and in the bottom of the house, like the first floor, the owner of the house lived there with 2 of his kids and his wife. And both of his kids had HIV at the time. And mind you, this was like in the late 80s. And I remember that it was traumatizing because my mom was like, you can't touch the stairs, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't this. Because there was so much fear around HIV around that time, and I would know about it because, first of all, my parents would talk about it and it was all over TV. I was always afraid of touching the stairs, going down the stairs, and if I would touch the stairs, I had to wash my hands. I was raised in a bubble of fear. Okay, and then as growing up, I wanted to have a dog. But I realized that when I would go touch my cousin's dog or something, I would get full of rashes and itchy, so I couldn't have a dog. And I remember that I would cry because I wanted a dog so bad. I wanted a dog so bad as a child that I ended up they ended up taking me to a allergist, because on top of that I was asthmatic, I was also allergic, and I ended up testing positive for allergies for absolutely everything. Like, I remember the doctor said that I should live in a glass bubble because I was allergic to everything. And like, if I would sit on the grass would cut me up. Like, if I got beat up by a cat, like, it would scratch my entire body and like it would swell. I would get welts. So I couldn't even sit on the grass, and I couldn't touch dogs. And I ended up getting a small poodle that then we had to give back to the owner because I was allergic to it. So I started going to an allergist, and I started getting shots for everything that I was allergic to. When I tell you that I was a test dummy for doctors, it's literally what I was. They did all sorts of tests on me. There was a time where I had 300 shots between both arms and my entire back. They would do all types of tests on me. Okay. And I took shots for dogs, cats, birds, dust mites, everything that you can think of, grass, birds. I took shots for it all. And I specifically took shots for dogs for so many years. But within like a little bit of taking the shots, I ended up, my mom's friend had another litter of puppies. And she gave my mom a poodle. And I had that poodle till I moved here. I was probably she lived to be 19 years old. So I think I was almost 20 years old, 21 years old, or 22 years old when she passed away. Here. Because we moved to Florida because of my asthma, because my asthma was so bad. But I would also use my asthma I would bring up asthma attacks to get my parents' attention, because that was the only time that I ever felt like they would pay attention to me. But many times with an asthma attack, my dad would say that I was a liar, and he would say horrible things to me while I was really having a hard time breathing, and the albuterol wouldn't work. So I would have to end up going to a hospital. So my whole entire life since I can remember, I was basically never validated specifically by my father. My mom was overprotective, but she was stone cold, no emotions whatsoever. So I grew up in a very dense fear environment, scared about things, scared for my life, having severe asthma attacks, allergic to everything, being bullied at school. I went through a mess of things, okay? And as a child, what I would do to entertain myself, because I wasn't even allowed to go out, was I don't mean go out by myself. My parents wouldn't really take me to friends' house to hang out. It would be cousins' birthdays and things like that. But I never really had I wouldn't be outside playing with a ball or anything like that. It was very rare. Barely ever even took me to see a movie. So he would get his big camcorder back in the day, in early 80s, the big camcorder, and he would just put it there for me to film myself. And he would just film me and my sister. And many times I would do like I would do weird, awkward, and say things that were weird because I felt so, I didn't like myself since I was very little, and I felt like awkward. And I would talk like stories that I would see at school, and I recorded them on a camera, like the camera that he would put for us to record ourselves. And I would tell a story about school or whatever. And many times he wouldn't be in the living room, but sometimes he would pass by and he would hear me like talking to the camera about the story. And you would hear him like, oh, you and your stupid stories or whatever, you're stupid, look how stupid you are and look how stupid you look or whatever. And I remember there's a lot of that is caught on camera. Okay, a lot of those moments were caught on camera, and you would see the awkwardness in me and how I would transform, and my face would I would make weird gestures and very introverted things where you can tell that I was someone who was afraid, and I haven't seen those videos in a long time, but I saw them about maybe 2 years ago. I saw one of them, and it's sad to watch myself feel so uncomfortable, and like you can see that I was scared I was just scared. So I grew up very, very conditioned to be fearful, not thinking that I was ugly, not worth it, that I had shark teeth, that that I had that I was stupid, no creativity, that everything I say was stupid, that I didn't know how to do anything, like that I couldn't attain to anything. So my whole life was like that, and I'm 43 years old and I'm at my house with my two parents, and I have all of these realizations throughout my life, and I start to really break down who I am really, and who I was, and what I was labeled with, and not just by my parents, but by kids, by teachers. I had once a security guard at school. I was in middle school, and the security guard here, I remember I was walking out of school, the bell had already rang, and we were going home, and I run into the security guard, and the security guard looks at me, and he was like, he said something about get out of the way because you have demon eyes. And I remember that startled me. It startled me, and it scared me. And there were times that I would look at myself in the mirror and I was like, what does he see? My eyes are just blue. I don't know what he sees. So I have experienced a lot of painful things that have been said to me as a person that has not allowed me to move on in life, because I believe so many of these things unconsciously, and I've been doing the work to move out of that. So it is not easy to break a pattern, okay? It's not easy to break away from what you have been conditioned to believe you are when you were a kid. And if you experience severe anxiety and severe trauma and verbal abuse and abuse in general, okay, when you are an adult, it is going to be so difficult, okay, because you are only living through that lens, and it's very hard to see otherwise, especially when you have two parents that are very, very stern in their way of being, that they don't see anything else, and it's only what they believe, and it's just that narrow-minded way of living. Those are my parents. So it was always a threat of oh, we're going to live under a bridge. We don't have money. We're going to end up under a bridge. We don't have money. There's no Christmas this year. There's no this, there's no that. A lot of times when he would get into arguments with my mother, he would pretend that he was leaving the house. So I'm leaving. And he would it would be such a drama, and so much verbal abuse and yelling and violence. And then he would walk out with his luggage to go out the door, and he would still be screaming out standing at the door and yelling and not leaving. He would never leave. He would just stay there with the stupid luggage. And I would say maybe an hour or something later, after this whole thing of him just being in front of the door with the luggage, and the calm would come, and then the fight would kind of like slow down. And my sister once was like, what the hell? She opened the luggage was empty. The luggage was empty. It was all a manipulative act. That's the kind of life that I have been living in. It is very hard. I know that I'm 43 years old, and I know that I should have been out of my house 20 years ago, but my programming and the way that I lived my life was so boxed in that I didn't know how to come out, and I was terrified. I was scared. Okay, I was scared because I didn't think that I was going to be able to survive my life on my own, because I was told that I was made believe that I couldn't. Okay, and my whole environment has always been very anxious, anxiety prone, and something is always going wrong. There's always like, oh, no money. My dad lost his job, or something happened to somebody, and somebody's dying, and my mom is like over anxious, crying, the loss of my grandmother. Like, it was a lot of things that I experienced as a child that was crazy. And there's crazy lightning. And it was just so much for me as a child that when I grew up, I could not navigate life in my own direction. I was navigating life in the direction that I was given. And I didn't know, because I was aware of a lot of things. Because like I said, I've always been ahead of my years. But when it came to myself, I had no way of knowing how to break that. I had no way of knowing how to free myself from that tight-knit box that I lived in, because I was so scared. I got rid of that bracelet that I mentioned earlier, okay? 3 years ago, I took off the bracelet because I told myself there is no way that a bracelet is controlling my life. And I took the bracelet off. I lived with that bracelet for most of my entire life since I was 5. Okay, so I took my bracelet at the age of 40. I took it off. So you have to see, like, I was conditioned in a very tight little box, and I did not know how to get out because it was so strict and so like condensed in there. And even though I was aware, I didn't know how to break out. I didn't know how to come out, and I finally did. And it allowed me to free myself the moment that I showed up on YouTube. And it's about to start raining here. It's getting dark. But yeah, the moment I showed up here on YouTube and I started to create my first video, it opened me into a whole world of really seeing myself and understanding myself and allowing you to see me. And I've never felt more seen and more understood in my life than I ever have been. And it has changed my life in the way that I navigate now, because I am moving life through me, through how I feel. And I'm not afraid of being who I am anymore. I'm not. And I am sharing my true raw experience of what I lived through as a child that really shaped me into being 43 years old, stuck in this really tight-knit box of this conditioning and programming and understanding of things that I experienced that was so fearful that I didn't know how to break away from until now. And I believe that I am on my way to opening possibility for myself and creating a life that I really want to live in and step into. And that the stories that were told that I experienced, they were just stories. My story is not that story anymore. I'm making my story now. And that is why I am here. Because I started my story on this journey, and I am going to take you with me on this journey and show you that you can break out of that tight-knit box as long as you open yourself and through your pain and your truth of your story. Possibilities are open and they're there for you. The universe is always there for you the moment that you decide that you want freedom. And that is what I want. I want freedom. I want financial freedom. I want the liberty to be able to do things for me, to live my life, to take care of my dogs, to give my niece things that she may want, to provide for other people, to help people, to donate money. I want to be able to give to the world. I want to be able to serve. And I want to be able to serve through my own experience and my story, because I feel like my story is so relatable. I never imagined it would be, but it is so relatable to all of you that I know that this is my path and I am here for that. And I wanted to touch a little more on my situation, okay, and my story, and how I led myself here being 43 years old stuck. So let me know in the comments below, what is so tight knit in that box? What is something that you've never told anybody? Because the story of the bracelet, hardly anybody knows that. Hardly anybody knows that. It was something that I never wanted to talk about because I was afraid of getting judged, because my parents believed my great grandmother, and especially my mom. So it was something that was embarrassing for me. It was embarrassing for me. So I'm gonna end this video here because it's about to pour. And let me know in the comments below what's something that you're keeping that you've never told anyone, that has confined you in a box, that has filled you with fear and has made you afraid of navigating in the world. Let me know below. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all. I'm going to be leaving now because it's about to pour. So I will be seeing you really soon. I'm grateful and much love to all of you. And remember, believe in yourself. Your authenticity is your power. It is your superpower. And you can change your life just like I am. I'm working on that, and you can work on that too. See you soon.